Welcome to Table Talk with Jack and Jill. I'm Jack Stern.
And I'm Jill Webb.
Glad to have you here as always. Today,
always a pleasure.
We're going to be diving deep into the world of poker tells.
Oh, this will be fun.
Yeah, and this is something that's always fascinated me. I've always wondered about these tells.
Yeah.
What are they exactly? I mean, for someone who's not a seasoned player,
Yeah, so a tell.
Right.
Imagine you're sitting across the table from somebody, and it's like a little secret that they give away. Whether they have a strong hand or if they're bluffing. It could be anything from like them fidgeting to a sudden change in their breathing.
Oh, wow.
It's like their body language betrays their true intentions.
So you're saying that if I learn to read these tells, I could get a sense of whether my opponent is bluffing or actually has a good hand.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
It's all about observation and understanding the psychology behind it. These tiny little actions that people aren't even aware of. For instance, a player who seems overly interested in the flop, like they're staring at it really intently, they might actually have a weak hand. And they're trying to project this confidence.
Wow.
Make you think they've got something big when they don't.
That's sneaky. But I imagine experienced players are wise to those kind of more obvious tells.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
They wouldn't fall for those tricks.
Wow.
As players get more experience, they try to control them. And that's when things get even more interesting, because then you have to look for these more subtle, advanced tells.
I see.
Like micro expressions, those fleeting facial expressions where you see their true emotions kind of flash before they can mask them.
Wow.
Or even how they breathe, Oh,
really?
A sharp inhale could indicate excitement about a strong hand.
So it's like they can barely contain it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So it becomes a real mind game.
Right.
The source material also mentioned that a player's betting patterns can be a tell as well. How can we use that to our advantage?
It's not just about the size of the bet, but also the timing.
Right.
The way they bet. For example, if a player usually bets big only when they have a really strong hand, and then suddenly they place a small bet, that might indicate they're trying to trap you with a bluff.
Oh, I see.
So you got to look at everything.
So it sounds like context is key here.
Absolutely.
I mean, the same behavior could mean different things depending on the player or the situation.
Exactly. You need to consider the player's tendencies.
Okay.
Are they generally aggressive? Do they bet big even with weak hands, or do they play more conservatively?
Right.
You also have to factor in what stage of the game it is. Because early rounds might be looser compared to the more cautious strategies used in later rounds.
So it's not just about memorizing a list of tells and applying them universally.
Yeah.
You really have to develop like a deep understanding of each player and how the game is unfolding.
Exactly.
It's almost like you're building a psychological profile for each person.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
At the table.
It's like being a detective gathering clues.
Yeah.
The more information you gather, the better equipped you'll be to interpret those tells.
So how can someone go about developing this poker intuition? I mean, are there any specific tips or techniques you could share?
Absolutely.
I'm ready to start honing my detective skills.
All right. So it all starts with sharpening your observation skills.
Okay.
You have to pay attention to patterns. Notice how each player reacts in different situations.
Right.
Do they become more talkative when they have a strong hand? Or do they clam up? Do they tend to bet big when they're bluffing, or only when they've got the goods?
So you're saying I should be watching how they bet, how they act, their facial expressions, even their breathing.
Everything.
Wow, it's like I need to be hyper aware.
Exactly. And you need to avoid tunnel vision. Don't just focus on your own cards and your own strategy. Keep an eye on everyone at the table.
Okay.
What are their expressions, their breathing patterns, their posture? The more you consciously log these reactions, the faster you'll develop that intuition.
Okay, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
You've given me a lot to think about, but I have a feeling we're only scratching the surface here.
Oh, yeah.
There's still so much more to uncover about the world of poker tells.
For sure. It's amazing how much we reveal through our body language.
It's like a secret language we're all speaking.
Exactly, even if we don't realize it.
Yeah.
Even something as simple as posture.
Oh, really?
Can be a huge giveaway at the poker table.
Posture.
Yeah, imagine you see a player slumped back in their chair.
Okay.
Shoulders drooping. it could be a sign of weakness. Like they're trying to kind of shrink away from the pressure of the game.
Interesting. So it's like their body is mirroring their weak hand?
Exactly. On the other hand, a player sitting up straight, shoulders back, projecting confidence.
Okay.
That might be a sign they have a strong hand.
I see.
They're literally taking up more space, like claiming their territory at the table.
So it's not just about reading faces, it's about reading their whole body.
Exactly. And don't forget about breathing.
Right.
We touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
A sharp inhale can suggest excitement about a strong hand.
Right. Like they can't contain their excitement and it just bursts out.
Yeah.
Couldn't that also mean that they're nervous about bluffing, though?
That's the challenge, right?
Right.
You have to consider all the possibilities. Yeah. Rapid or shallow breathing could mean that they're bluffing and worried about getting caught.
Right.
Or it could be genuine excitement about a strong hand.
Yeah.
You got to factor in their other tells and their betting patterns to really get the full picture.
So it's all about like piecing together the puzzle. Okay. So posture breathing. What else should we be paying attention to?
Well, hand movements can be quite revealing.
Okay. Like how they handle their chips or cards?
Exactly. A player who's constantly fiddling with their chips, rearranging them nervously, might be betraying a lack of confidence in their hand.
Right, whereas someone who's confidently stacking their chips, building a little fortress in front of them, that might be a power move.
Exactly. And then there's the more subtle hand gestures, like touching their face, rubbing their neck, or adjusting their clothing. Yeah,
I've definitely noticed people do that when they're stressed or uncomfortable.
Right. Those are often subconscious attempts to self-soothe, relieve anxiety. And in the context of poker, that can be a telltale sign of a weak hand or a bluff.
It's like their body is trying to calm itself down.
Yeah.
But it's giving away their secrets in the process.
Exactly. And we can't forget about those micro expressions.
Right.
Keep an eye out for those quick bursts of surprise, relief, frustration that flash across their face.
Yeah.
They can be incredibly telling, especially if they contradict the player's overall demeanor.
Right.
Imagine someone who seems calm and collected, but then you see this flicker of panic in their eyes when they see the flop.
Wow.
That's a big red flag.
So it's like being a human lie detector.
In a way, yes. But remember, even the best poker players can be deceived. That's where the art of deception comes in.
Deception, you mean like players intentionally using tells?
Yes.
To mislead their opponents?
Exactly. Skilled players don't just try to mask their own tells.
Right.
They use them as weapons to manipulate their opponents.
Oh, wow.
It's like psychological warfare at the poker table.
Okay, now this is getting really interesting. It's like they're creating a whole performance to throw everyone off.
Precisely. And there are so many techniques they use to do that. For example, they might feign weakness.
Okay.
Act completely disinterested in a strong hand to try and lure their opponents into a trap.
Ooh.
Or they might overact.
Okay.
Use these really exaggerated behaviors to confuse their opponents and keep them guessing.
So it's almost like acting.
In a way, yes.
Wow.
It's all about selling the performance. And timing is crucial too.
Right.
For instance, a well-placed pause before betting can create ambiguity.
Right.
Make their opponents wonder, are they hesitating because they have a weak hand? Or are they just trying to psych me out?
So you're using silence as a weapon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Creating this psychological vacuum that they'll try and fill with their own assumptions.
And on the flip side, like a quick reaction, making a snap decision without hesitation can give the impression that a really strong hand, even if you don't.
Exactly. It's all about projecting that image of confidence and decisiveness.
This is incredible. I'm starting to see just how much depth there is to reading these poker tells. Yeah. It's like learning a whole new language.
Exactly. It takes practice. Keen observation to become fluent in the language of tells.
Right.
But even then, there's always more to learn.
Thinking back to that source material, I'm curious, are there any specific signs that almost always indicate a strong hand? Like, what should we be looking for?
Well, there are a few tells that tend to be pretty reliable indicators of a strong hand, although you always have to consider the context.
Right.
One is a relaxed posture.
Okay.
If a player seems comfortable and composed.
So they're not fidgeting, they're not tense, they're just chilling.
Exactly. Right. Another good sign is consistent eye contact.
Okay.
A player who confidently looks at their opponents without hesitation.
Yeah.
Often holding a strong hand.
It's like they're not afraid to show their strength.
Precisely. And then there's the way they bet. Deliberate, well-timed bets often indicate a strong hand.
It's like they're saying, I know I've got you beat.
Exactly. And sometimes you might notice a change in their behavior when they have a particularly strong hand. They might become more assertive, making quick decisions, taking firm actions. Or they might show reduced reactivity, remaining really calm and collected even when the stakes are high.
So it's not just about what they do, it's about how their behavior changes.
Exactly. Now, on the flip side, there are also signs that often suggest a weak hand. One of the most common is hesitation. If a player takes a long time to decide on a move, it could be a sign they're struggling with a tough decision.
So they're stalling for time, trying to think of a plan.
Exactly. You might also notice tense movements, like fidgeting, rubbing their face, shifting in their seat. It's like their body's betraying their discomfort.
They just can't seem to relax, huh?
And some players will try to avoid tension altogether when they have a weak hand. They might break eye contact, avoid looking at other players.
Try to minimize their presence at the table.
By
placing small bets or frequently checking.
So they're hoping to fly under the radar and not draw attention to themselves.
Exactly. They're trying to blend in.
And
avoid making any big moves that might give away their weakness.
This is so helpful. I'm already starting to feel like I have a better grasp on these tells.
Good.
But what about those master deceivers?
The
players who intentionally use tells to mislead their opponents. What are some of their tricks of the trade?
Well, one of the most common techniques is false confidence. They might project an overly assured demeanor with a weak hand to try and scare off their opponents.
So it's all about faking it till you make it.
Exactly. And some players will intentionally mimic the classic tells of anxiety to mislead observant players. They might fidget nervously, avoid eye contact, or even fake a shaky hand when they bet.
Wow, that's really devious.
I can't believe how much thought and strategy goes into all of this.
And remember, the timing of these deceptive moves is crucial. A delayed bet, pausing for a moment before placing your bet, can create a sense of ambiguity.
So you're using silence as a weapon again.
Exactly, creating a psychological vacuum that your opponents will try and fill with their own assumptions.
And then a quick reaction on the flip side.
Exactly, making a snap decision to bet or raise. Without hesitation can give the impression that you have a very strong hand.
It's like you're saying, I'm so confident in my hand, I don't even need to think about it.
Precisely. It's all about projecting that image of confidence and decisiveness.
This has been an incredible crash course in the art of deception.
Good.
I'm feeling like a secret agent learning all the tricks of the trade.
Well, remember, the most important skill in poker isn't memorizing a list of tells. It's the ability to read your opponents, understand their individual tendencies, and adapt your strategy accordingly.
So it's not just about spotting the tells, it's about understanding the person behind them.
Exactly. It's about connecting the dots, seeing the bigger picture. Using your intuition to make the best possible decision in every situation.
Okay, so I've got to ask, after all this talk about tells and deception, do you think there's any way to completely master the art of reading people at the poker table? Or is there always going to be that element of chance and uncertainty?
Well, that's the beauty of poker. You know, it's a game of imperfect information. You can never be 100% certain what your opponent's thinking or what cards they're holding. But that's also what makes it so challenging and rewarding.
So it's not about being right all the time. It's about making the best possible decision. With the information you have.
Exactly. And that's where experience comes in. Observation, the more you play, the more you learn to recognize patterns and interpret those subtle cues.
So it's like any skill, the more you practice, the better you get.
Exactly. But, you know, even the most experienced players can be fooled sometimes. That's why it's important to stay humble. To always be learning and to never underestimate your opponents.
Okay, so let's say I'm at the table. Trying to put all of this into practice. What's the most important thing to keep in mind?
Well, remember, reading people is just one piece of the puzzle. You also need to have a solid understanding of poker strategy, odds and probabilities, and just as importantly, you need to be aware of your own tendencies and how they might be perceived by your opponents.
So it's not just about reading them, it's about understanding myself as a player.
Exactly. If you can control your own tells and project a consistent image, You'll make it much harder for your opponents to read you.
So it's like a double-layered game.
Yeah.
I need to be aware of my own tells while trying to decipher theirs.
Exactly. It's a fascinating dance of observation.
Yes.
Deception and strategy.
That's what makes poker so interesting. This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of poker tells.
It's been my pleasure.
I feel like you've given me a whole new set of tools to bring to the table.
I hope so.
And you know what?
Yeah.
These skills aren't just limited to poker, are they?
Oh, absolutely not.
Being able to read people and understand their motivations, that's valuable in all aspects of life.
Exactly.
Now that I think about it, I'm realizing how often we unknowingly give away tells in our everyday interactions.
All the time.
Whether it's a job interview, a first date, or just a conversation with a friend.
Yeah.
We're constantly sending and receiving these nonverbal signals.
They are.
So the next time you're interacting with someone, pay attention to their body language.
Yes.
Tone of voice, facial expressions. You might be surprised by what you discover.
For sure.
Thanks again for all your insights. It's been a truly eye-opening experience.
You're welcome.
And for our listeners out there, I hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for the subtle art of reading people.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe it'll even give you an edge the next time you find yourself at a poker table.
Equal luck.
Until next time.